Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Stone Disclosure. I am joined right now by two of my favorite people. They've actually become, well, one was already one of my favorite people. The other one has really become like A1 for me. I'm here with Matt and Will, if you guys remember them from the last episode we did, where we talked about modern day dating. So these guys have come back. We're going to tackle a similar topic. We're actually just going to talk about navigating the dynamics of relationships. We have one more member coming in. He's just a little bit delayed right now. He will jump in at some point and he'll introduce himself then. But anyone who's familiar with the podcast is familiar with him as well. So, guys, just give me a quick rundown. How has your week been?
Week's been busy. Just getting in with my two jobs. Mechanic by day, Uber Eats driver by night, sometimes by afternoon, day off the weekend, you already know how it goes. I don't have to explain that to you.
Morning.
Yeah. So, yeah, just busy.
It's been a busy week, definitely. Busy teaching. That's my day job. And absolutely busy with my art hustle side gig. And that keeps me definitely busy. I enjoy both. And I'm ready for today's conversation.
All right. So, we lost Matt. He'll be back.
He'll be back shortly.
Sorry about that. Incoming call, of course, and it pops up 10 different options to choose, and obviously I picked the wrong one this time.
It happens, man. So we are talking navigating relationships today. So what I consider relationships is like you're past the dating stage. You've already kind of decided that you guys are now practicing for marriage. That's really what I consider relationships at the end of the day. So quick question, are both of you guys currently single or in relationships? And if you are single, how long was the longest relationship you've been in?
I'm single currently, and longest relationship I've been in has been a year.
Okay.
Currently single, longest relationship 4.5 years.
So we have a varied, broad spectrum of difference. For anybody who doesn't know me, I was in a relationship for about 12, 13 years. So we have a broad spectrum here of time. So the interesting thing that I've already taken so far is Will. So Will, your longest relationship was a year, and why was it so short?
Well, that particular relationship, why was it so short? Well, first off, first things first, she ended it.
Usually
I didn't want to leave. I'm not putting it all on her, but I mean that's I'm just documenting what happened, at the end of the day. And it was kind of weird because it's like she didn't want to give a reason at the time. I just asked her for a reason kind of thing, and it's almost as if she was hiding the reason. She just wanted to kind of end it as quick as possible type of thing. It was I don't know, it was odd at the time. And this was back for the audience. This is in my early 20s, so quite some time ago. And yeah, I just kept I probably prodded a little bit too more than I should have, but I kind of asked her, I just kept getting on her. Okay, well, what's the reason? You couldn't just, you don't just leave a relationship out of the blue. What is the reason? And I guess one day she's like, okay, fine. And she gave me like a laundry list of things. Oh, you're too angry sometimes. You don't offend me, because she was, this girl's, she was chubby, whatever. It was what it was, So she's like, oh, you don't defend me when I'm around your family, etc. Little things like that, man. It was kind of crazy. And the worst part, she broke with me on just before my birthday.
Yeah.
Oh man, brutal.
I know the feeling. I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's unfortunate. So, in regards to that, what did you learn from that relationship? Because I'm assuming that since that was so long ago, there's some things that you've learned and you've kind of picked up on, and you're a lot more hesitant to like jump into relationships now when you like see certain things. So, what was the biggest takeaway you got from that relationship?
Biggest takeaway, just in general, like what in terms of like what worked, what didn't work.
Yeah.
Like
how did that relationship kind of shape what you're looking for now moving forward?
Right. Well, before with that relationship, it was more, we just kind of, fell into it, sort of thing. You know what I mean? Young. It was kind of the early stages of online dating. Now you can get an app. Back then there was no apps, so it was like the early days of that. So yeah, it's I guess the one, well, positive and negative. There's a lot of sex, nothing wrong with that. But then it's like, after a while, it's like, okay, well, we gotta kind of define the roles of the relationship. What you're doing, what I'm going to be doing, and it's just because it wasn't really a clear direction. I did my best to be the leader in that situation. I always, she always depended on me to lead. I led to the best of my ability at the time, and that's kind of, I guess that's kind of how it lasted as long as it did. But at the same time, another thing that happened that I recall is that she would almost like ask for permission to I remember it was one time, I guess she was having like a smoke break or something, and she seen this guy. I was talking to her, and then she texted me one day randomly. She's like, "Oh, is it okay if I can keep this guy's number in my phone?" You know what I mean? And this was like early stages of the relationship. You know what I mean? I was just taking it back. I didn't even know how to respond to that. And later on, I was just like, no. My first reaction was like, no. And then later on, I was like, yeah, I don't even know why you even considered that. So that should have been a red flag from early on. So, but it is what it is. I missed it.
That's weird. I truly can say I've never heard that in my life. That's insane. Like,
Yeah.
I guess. All right, Matt. So same thing. You said 4 years was yours, right?
4 years, just over 4 years. That's right. That ended about 3 years ago. And it's in between that time I've dated other women. Obviously, it hasn't been that long a span of time with them, but yeah, the longest, and definitely the most interesting. Not necessarily for the right reasons, but lots of learning. I'll tell you that. Lots of learning there. I met her while I was in school, and she was already integrated into her career life. So right off the bat, that was creating some tension. And I met her live. This wasn't through the internet. I met her during a summer in student work program. She was already working. It was a government job, and I met her in the office in the department. And I was enamored immediately with just her personality, her voice, all kinds of features. Her face. She was beautiful, and we hit it off. And I started courting her because I wanted her, and the process was. It went swimmingly. It was very fluid, very natural, very organic. And eventually we started going steady. And so it was excellent at the beginning. Excellent. It felt so good, so right. And we really hit it off well. And then it was maybe about the 6-month mark. I realized that we were both set in our ways, and this is when it really just went downhill fast, because she was kind of stuck in her ways and with her personality, and me with my personality. And we just kind of started veering away from each other, doing our own thing. And the differences became very glaring and started creating a serious divide between us. And another kind of strange thing was I noticed that she was trying to compete with me in the weirdest ways. And it just didn't make any sense. Obviously, in terms of earning, she was making more. She was already working, and I was still in school. And I'd actually gotten a job, my teaching job I'd gotten while I was with her, and I still got it. So I mean, it's not like she didn't, and she knew I was astute as a student. There was no issue there. And I was writing a book at the time, and she was really into that because she loved to read, and she was reading my work, and it worked in so many ways. And then in other ways, it just didn't obviously pan out. And then I eventually just fell out of love with her, and I always felt so disconnected from her, and the worst thing is I felt lonely being with her. And that is just, if anybody listening to this needs an indicator of when it's time to walk away, if you feel that, it is time to walk away, because this person is not your person. So that about sums it up.
I know that feeling.
Mhm.
I am recently out of a relationship. I just ended one in January for about a year. And prior to that, it was about 12, 13 years. But that's a true feeling. Like you're there with the person and you feel alone. You feel like disconnected, disattached,
Mm.
kind of both in your own space. And it's like, it's okay for like a couple hours a day, you know, if you need that kind of time to yourself. But I don't know about you, it became awkward. Like it became
Yeah.
when you're just walking into just like a foreign place. Like the outside was more understandable for you
I
than
felt
like
that.
just.
Yeah. I felt a profound sadness, actually.
Mm,
It felt like I was in a desert, and
mhm,
it shouldn't have been. Like she was there, but there was such a divide between us. Just, um, I don't know, spiritually, just a
mhm,
disconnect, a pure disconnect, and it just ruptured everything. So much so that it just tore us apart, and that was the end of that. And I'll admit, she ended it, but in my heart, I feel like I'd kind of already just disappeared. It's just so brutal. And I didn't want to end the relationship. I didn't want it to end. I thought we could repair it. I knew she thought so too. But sometimes I mean, the boundary was crossed. There was we passed the point of no return on that. And that's how that panned out. Quite sad, quite sad. Um,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
What would you say was the biggest thing you learned about yourself moving forward from that relationship?
My faults during that relationship, I'm fully accountable for the ways that I had the ways that she deserved to be treated that I wasn't privy to at the moment. I should have been more supportive of her, perhaps emotionally. I became quite distant and cold near the end, especially when like as I mentioned, falling out of love with her. I just wasn't treating her well enough in that sense. Um, and I'm sure if I treated her better in that regard prior to crossing that point of no return, it could have potentially strengthened what we had and helped us move forwards as a couple. So, and this kind of pertains to what I mentioned in the last video about being aware of how the woman needs to be seen.
Mm,
I wasn't seeing her as she needed to be seen in her unique way. Every woman's different. If I cater to her needs more so, with more attention to the detail, she would have loved it. It would have really been the icing on the cake to help her understand that I understood her. So I just messed that up, and now I know what how to deal with a woman in that sense, moving forwards. So through that pain and heartache, I absolutely learned so much, so much, and I'm sorry that it had to happen with her.
mm.
She was the one that I had to experience that with, but yeah,
Yeah, that's how
what else
it
can I
goes
say?
sometimes.
Yeah.
That's how it goes sometimes.
Mhm.
So what do you guys like about being in a relationship? Because I know a lot of women think men don't like being in relationships. I personally do, but like, what is it that you guys like about it?
Um, I'd say the intimacy. That's a big part of it. Not necessarily, like even just like, the whole, idea of like cuddling, maybe just having her close to you, like that's a big thing. Um, like this, like time to yourselves, you know what I'm saying? Like if it's a walk in the park, on the beach, riding bikes together, that type of thing.
Mm.
Very good. Yeah, you concluded that thought, Will.
Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
I wasn't really going extrapolating more. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I absolutely I agree with that. The companionship factor is bar none. There's no comparison. It's great when you're alone and you can be comfortable being alone, but when you have someone with you, it just enhances your experience of life. I can admit that. And I loved engaging in all those kind of outdoor together activities, going for walks, the simplest things, just a walk together on a evening, nice, nice evening out. There's nothing like it. You have a nice conversation. If you can be anywhere with the person you're with and you love them, and these activities, just being with them spices up the experience of being alive. And of course, the intimacy I mean, that goes without saying. That's phenomenal when everything's working well together. Cooking together, engaging in all these activities, helping each other. She was absolutely phenomenally supportive. And I was in school at the time, like I mentioned, and just to give you one example, like she went over the top, and I have to say it. I got behind in one of my readings. She read an entire book for me and gave me a summary, and I couldn't finish the book. So she loved to read, right? So this is something that, I mean, this is a green flag for a partner when she goes out of her way to do something that intense. And for her, it was like nothing. She's like, oh, that's a cool book. I'm going to read that. I'm going to help you as you write your paper because I know some details you might have missed skimming through trying to get the content absorbed. So like she did some really beautiful things that I'll never forget. So just things like that, being able to be there for each other. She loved, and I was supportive of her. She had some issues at her workplace and she'd come to me, and I love that because she liked my perceptive opinions, my intuitive insight into dealing with the interpersonal dilemma she faced with her colleagues and that I felt appreciated. As a man, it's really nice to feel appreciated with your partner. She made me feel that way at its best, and that was really great. And you can't get that being alone. You can kind of get it, like I put my art out there and people like it, they appreciate it. Clients want business. I mean, that's great. It's different with a partner though. The intimacy factor just enhances it profoundly. So.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. And I don't even think I have anything to follow up with. I truly believe that men and women were designed to actually like traverse the world together and share those experiences together. And having that person, it really does make it so much better. Like I date it back to like, imagine you're like playing basketball with your boys and you hit that 3-point shot and all your boys are cheering. You're like, yeah, that's great. That's great. But like your girl cheering for you is like a whole different level.
Oh, yeah.
It's just able to just share time together, share those experiences together, just be in each other's space and being each other's energy. It's like, it's so invigorating. It almost like wake, and it makes you just want to do more. And I think that's one thing that I think a lot of women that I've talked to have kind of missed, or maybe they don't get it. I always say like a man will legitimately move a mountain for you if he feels appreciated and he feels loved. If he feels like you are depending on him to do that, he will do it. And you appreciate the fact that he's going to do it. He'll do it. I think they've just come to a point now where they just assume like we're not about that life or we don't want to be in relationships. But I don't really know a whole lot of guys who would ever truly say, I don't want to be in a relationship. The most I hear is I don't want to be in one right now because I'm ready for one.
Mm-hmm.
So since we talked about things we liked about them, let's talk about some things we didn't like about being in a relationship because they go hand in hand. We'll start with Matt. Who went first last time?
Okay. Yeah. What I didn't like, and I mean, this is going to come off pretty bad, perhaps for me. I feel like I've grown from this. I definitely feel like I've grown from this. But at the time, what I really didn't like was having to constantly cater to the needs of another, and it so much so that it started to encroach on my own personal time and space. And it made it more challenging because as an artist, you need time like no one's business. I mean, to create art is just a time sink. And she did respect that, but I still feel at the same time it wore down on her, and she became distant from me in me doing that, like engaged in art as that process. So she accepted it and not at the same time. This is a challenge I found with women too. Like they like that I make art, but they don't like that it takes me away from them. So that was an additional challenge that I think wedged itself into our relationship, where it might not be the case with other people. Because like she'd do her 9 to 5, come home, I'm still doing art. I would come up there and I'd usually make dinner for us. We cook together. That was what we did. She always had me deciding the meals, which I didn't mind. And then I go back down to do art. I had my office in the basement, and yeah, it just I see, like looking back now, I see that I didn't like having to constantly like I don't know, yeah, dealing with another person's the emotional needs, the constant emotional like the neediness. but I don't think it was that bad. I think I was just too. I just had too many walls up. And what else? What else didn't I like? I guess like having to spend time compromising on simple things. Like I didn't mind that she asked me to figure out the meals because I come up with 10 ideas right away because I was prepared for it. I kind of like adapted to that. But then other things that I would just do and simply get done. It wasn't that simple. I'd have to talk about it and like figure out what would make her happy. That's something I definitely don't miss. I don't miss that at all because I like to get shit done. Like boom, 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 it's done. Moving on. And a lot of that was so I could get back to my own pursuits. So, but I'll tell you, it wasn't bad. Like going to her with her, she loved gardening, so I go with her and help her find flowers. And these are beautiful things. Like, you know, I could put the ego aside and be there for her when she needed it. And it was a lovely thing. It was such a mixed bag across the board, really. But that's my thought on what I didn't quite like.
And Will, yourself?
Yeah, similar to what Matt touched on, like kind of like the micromanaging kind of aspect of it. Like I'll be like at work. Like one time I was with this girl and I'm at work and she's like, she literally sent me like 40 something messages, or no, sorry, my bad. It was 40 missed calls. She just kept calling.
That's even worse.
She just kept calling. I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking like, by the time I got to like the 30th call, I'm like, okay, she's got to be a psycho. Because my phone was, first off, my phone was charging, and this is the early days of when I got back into the trade, right? It was back into cars again, and it was busy season, doing tires or whatever. So I put my phone away at the time. It was charging, and figured I'll go back to it, and it's like literally like 30 missed calls. I'm like, no, this can't be real. And this was like kind of early stages with this girl, maybe like month into the relationship or so. And man, it was just like, yeah, like this. Once I saw that, I was like, okay, this is red flag. So yeah, this is the whole that whole aspect of the micromanaging, and then the emotional need, like you being there for all of her emotional needs. I mean, yeah, you could be there at times, of course, but you can't be there for every single moment of that. So was that, and also what else could I touch on? Maybe I guess maybe sometimes the overdependence. I just think this is okay because this is my boyfriend, this is my man. I can just he's like an automatic automatically when I need him, you know what I mean, like at the drop of a dime, he'll be here. It's like, no, I can't be here every single time. As much as I can, of course, but I'm not gonna be there every single time.
No, that's facts. Absolutely. Now, for myself, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing for me, but I've had both ends of the spectrum now in, I'd say, the span of like 3 years, because my marriage, my partner was very dependent on me. It was very, we have to spend time together. It was very, we have to be around each other all the time. We're sitting watching Bold and the Beautiful, even though like I hate it. I know she wants that time. Time was very big for her. And having that unity in that space, you want to do everything together. You want to cook together. You want to clean together. If she decided she was going to go outside and plant a tomato, I had to be there. Like it was a constant, I need you around me type of thing, which was okay. I didn't mind it. Every now and then you just kind of like, just go do your own shit, reconvene in like a couple hours. But I went from that spectrum to then being legitimately by myself, not really entertaining anybody for almost 2 years, to then getting into a relationship where my partner was very like individual. They were very like, this is my space, this is what I do. We don't have to be around each other all the time. I like to go do me, you go do you type of thing. So it was two very extreme contrasts. It was like extreme heat and extreme cold. So having processed all that now, I think the thing that I dislike about relationships is the unbalance that it causes your life. Now, it's not a bad thing because I do unbalance their life as well. And I think that's where compromise and communication becomes important, because you are upsetting another person's life. And if you're in a situation where, like, let's say the person has kids, let's say the person has a lot of responsibilities, you want to come in and you want to be that person for them and you want to be that support for them, but then you can't to some degree. You know what I mean? You want to be the leader, you want to take charge, you want to kind of like run the ship. but it's very hard for them to give up the wheel because everything in there affects them more than it affects you. So I dated somebody with a kid, and you'll see this a lot if you date like single moms. They have their shit set up already. You know what I mean? So you're coming in and they almost have to make room for you.
Mm-hmm.
They'll make as much room as they can, but at the end of the day, when decisions have to be made, as much as your decision may be the most logical decision, if it doesn't make sense to them, it does not happen. So then you get into this power struggle. And that's probably the one thing I hate the most about like relationships, is getting into that power struggle with people. You guys know me. I'm probably the most easygoing person on the planet, especially in a relationship. I'm cool with a lot of shit. As long as our respect is there and our communication is there, that's huge. But getting into that power struggle is bad for me because I understand that as much as I can push to win, I don't care to win. I really don't give a shit. If you want the victory, take the victory. But if you're going to take the victory, then take all the repercussions that come with that victory. So when shit hits the fan, that's on you. You know what I mean? Like, I expect you to deal with that and to handle that business. So I think for me, it's just finding that balance, constantly changing chasing that balance in a relationship to where that cohesion really kicks in. Now, I do also believe that these are things you kind of put in at the beginning of the relationship. Like when you're getting to know each other, it's like, listen, I'm in charge, I run the ship, blah, blah, blah. And that's cool. But I don't know. I don't function that way. I don't function to that degree. I kind of want you to have some autonomy in your life. I kind of want you to be able to like handle some shit without me. I don't want to be in a situation where it's like every move that you make has to be like, oh, well, I got to call you and I got to confirm that. No, like, you know how to be an adult too. So let's just both be adults together. I'm good at this. You're good at that. You handle A, I'll handle B. And figuring that out and understanding how that works, I think, is the hard part for me. I think that's where I dislike the most, is just navigating that space. Oh, that was a lot.
No, that's good. Makes sense. Very clear.
So why do you guys think relationships are so difficult? Like in your own personal opinions.
I'd say because kind of like you touched on, Trey, like it's hard for like the both parties to come to consensus. Like, okay, like this is how we're gonna move forward. This is a power struggle. Like depending on the personality, because you got different personalities and you're dealing with sometimes. Sometimes you're dealing with the same personality, and then oftentimes that ends up in a clash. So yeah, I think it's just honestly, I think it's as simple as trying to find it's as simple as not being able to find common ground. I think that's where you end up in a lot of problems. So I think, well, from the men's point of view, I would say the solution to that is finding somebody who's I would say more so complements you rather than is the same as you, or cohesive as in like you're like you're the same person. Like I'm not looking for the female version of Will. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking for girls gonna compliment me. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, that's a great point, Will. That compliment, a partner that can compliment you. I think what makes it so difficult is if communication isn't complete. Like there's a lack of communication in certain areas. That's a hard thing for just the average human being to be able to do. And I even found like that particular girlfriend I was with for that duration of time, she was good at communicating, but not fully. There were certain areas, without going into detail, certain areas that she was just too shy to communicate in full. And I knew right away that would be an issue, because in those areas I wasn't shy. And that's another thing to look out for if you can't communicate fully. I mean, it kind of is an indicator of where you're at on like a conscious level, like how far your growth has come as an individual. Because I know now, like I'll communicate anything to a woman, anything. I'm not afraid to say anything, to be expressive, to let her know who I am and what I'm about, because then she'll be able to cater to my needs and my wants easier, because then she knows me. But a lot of people find that puts them in a vulnerable position, which it does. But that's a risk I'm willing to take, because full transparency, there's nothing like it. And if you find a partner you can trust enough to be able to do that with, you're just gonna win. It's just gonna be that much better, because she's gonna know every nuanced detail about you, and you're gonna have an amazing daily experience. And I knew that I was holding back from that woman. She was holding back from me for sure. And I even asked her things, and she just couldn't divulge the information. She just couldn't express herself. Being able to express yourself is critical. Not being able to do so is you're treading down a path towards destruction. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on that.
No, very well articulated by both of you guys. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that kind of change relationships, and I'm gonna touch on like just the general concept of things, and then kind of where we're at now in relationships. If we're talking generally, the one thing that I see that there is not a lot of is just respect for each other. I feel like a lot of relationships just they fall apart because you stop respecting your partner.
Mm-hmm.
When I say respecting your partner, like if you respect them, you'll communicate. If you respect them, you'll put in the effort. If you respect them, you'll do the shit that sometimes you don't even want to do, but you know it's going to make their day better. You know it's going to make their life easier. And I think now we've just come to a point where I guess there's so much accessibility or perceived accessibility that you don't really respect things anymore. And let's state it back to like anything in your life. If you went out and you got those fresh pair of Air Force Ones, those are the only shoes that you have, you're going to take care of them. But once you're able to buy like 6-7 pairs of it, you don't really take care of it the same way. So your respect for it is a lot different. Your want, your desire and everything for it is a lot different. If you have the same car that you've been driving for 7 years and now you can buy a new car, chances are you're not going to care for your car as much. Now, I think what people believe is that because there's so much accessibility to people, they believe that there's accessibility to relationships, and they're actually two very different things. I can go on Hinge right now. I could probably talk to like 15 girls. It is what it is. Out of those 15 girls, I will probably never wind up in a relationship with any of them. Not because I don't want to, but because we won't have the same compatibility. And you know when the person's compatible with you because then you want to put that effort in to make it work. You respect them. You respect how, like what Will said, how they complement your life and how they fit in and still allow you to be yourself, but then like help you change the things that could make you better. And I think because now we just perceive that like, oh, well, you know, if this person ain't working for me, I'm just going to go about my business. Yeah, if you figure that out early, that's fine. But I think a lot of the times when people get into the relationships, they start realizing that like, I'm not watering this grass anymore because I don't want the grass anymore. I don't respect it anymore. This one looks greener to me. So I stop giving a shit. And then when you start to do that, obviously things are going to fall apart. What you wind up seeing a lot of times is they'll get together very young. They'll go through all the bullshit. Then they'll go their separate ways. And then you'll go off and date your people. She'll go off and date her people. And then you'll meet up with each other 15 years later. And now you're a completely different version of yourself because now you understand that like that respect in the relationship was gone. And I see the person in a different light. I will say this for myself. Coming out of my marriage, me and my ex-wife communicate really well. We communicate better not being in that relationship than we did when we were in it.
Interesting.
Like, the respect is different now. It's no longer like we're like butting heads to try to make life work. It's just more of a matter of I respect what you went through the same way you respect what I went through. And I respect what you're becoming. And you're doing the exact same thing. So it's just, I think personally, that's like the one thing that kind of leads things when you don't have that. On a side note, we have Mr. Tim.
Yeah, I made it.
You made it.
Sorry about all that trouble.
Came dressed to the nines too.
I just haven't undressed. That's all. I just walked through the door, told the family what's up, so I got a little space.
All right, so we're gonna just do a quick catch up with Tim. So Tim, you are currently in a relationship, correct?
Yes, I am. Married 3 years now. Been
Alright.
with her for about 20 years now, since high school.
Wow.
Tim is a lifer.
Lifer, yes.
All right. So
Yes.
what do you like about being in your relationship?
The consistency of having somebody there who has your back, who like picks up your slack, and I mean, just knowing when I get home every day, having someone there is everything. And I know she has my back. I don't worry about her when she's outside. She's going to hold down her part. And I mean, it hasn't always been great, but we've come a long way to the point where I think we're in a great spot. Great spot. Wouldn't change a thing.
All right. So what are some things you dislike about being in a relationship?
I guess the lack of freedom. And I don't even mean like stuff outside. It's like, for an example, like a couple of years ago, I started doing like leather crafting. And my space is a tiny corner in the bedroom. To expand this, I need permission to do this. Because it's her space. It's kind of messy. It's da-da-da. So it's like, if I was on my own, it'd just be like the whole room is a shop. But it's not even to say that's a problem at all. It's just circumstances. Like I share the space with someone else, so I can't just freely move and do as I please and whatnot. Like I started a little gardening thing on the balcony and whatnot, and I brought the plants inside. I would love to just put plants everywhere. It's not gonna happen. She'd be like, "Oh, so yeah, another plant, huh? So you done? One more? Okay, we'll see." So it's just reality. It's not an issue. It's just the way things are. But I mean, she gives me my space. She gives me leeway, and it works.
What's one thing that you believe you learned from being in your relationship, whether life or yourself?
Acceptance. In the beginning of the relationship, there was a lot I wanted to control and change to have it my way. And it necessarily wasn't something that needed to be changed. It was just like, okay, I've heard this. People talk about relationship. Like, this is not going to happen. I'm not going to do this. But it's like, shit happens. You can't really control everything. You learn from your mistakes and you learn to forgive and move on and just let go of certain things that are not really that important. I've learned to shrink the people around me. Like if you are not adding, like if you're not good for me, if you're not anything positive, then the extra is really not needed. Really not needed. Like if the people in my home is happy, that's where it has to start. And that to a point makes life so much less stressful.
Sure.
Facts. I like that. I like that answer. So at the beginning, I'm sure you had your and your problems like every relationship does.
Oh yeah.
How, when you were looking at it, how were you able to be a better partner for her?
But one thing in the beginning was, I think we both did was we decided this was it. Like we weren't going to run off or we weren't going to like end it. Like we've had our points where like, oh, I know, F you, it's over. But like it never stuck. It never, like we wanted, if we were going to fight, we were fighting to make things work. It wasn't always that way, but we got to a point where it's like, okay, we are going to be together. Like it's just these little things that we keep nagging at each other for that really wasn't that big of a deal or important. But over time, you kind of let it go and have accepted certain things. And I think we're better for it.
And in your opinion, why do you think relationships become difficult?
That's a good question. It's two different people trying to make it in work in one household. Like when it's a friend, you see them and then they go away, like they go to their place and you have your space. Or if it's just like in the dating stages, certain things you can like let go of. You can like, all right, cool, she's gone. I can be myself, or I can relax, whatnot. But that's not an option. I think I kind of lost track of what I was saying there.
No, you can't run. There's nowhere.
No, that's it. You gotta decide to make this work. And certain issues, like my wife is an introvert, and that is something I had to learn. Back when we first got together, oh my God, drove me nuts. But I didn't understand it. And then like when I first learned that word introvert, it was just like, oh, let me look into what this is. Changed everything. So like if I'm giving out one advice, learn your significant other. Learn him like deeply, better than anybody else could. Because there's certain shit like you might want to change it, but if that's them, you got to learn to accept it and work around it, or just deal with it. That might not sound great. Some people be like, God, change is happening. You're all growing. We all grow every day, and certain things you're gonna be mad about. But man, if it's fucking with your peace, you gotta let it go.
Oh, nice. Very well articulated. It's funny because like you talk about it, and I have flashbacks of myself when I was in the same space, and it's just like sometimes you're arguing about the smallest thing.
Dumb shit.
Nothing.
Dumb stuff.
In all honesty, you're complaining about where the shoes are, and you know like the shoes are not the problem. So it's like, what is the issue? Like, just get to that point and just forward. And sometimes you have to like swallow your pride. Sometimes you just got to be like, you know what? I'm gonna just take the L.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a huge one.
This
like
argument.
Certain battles are not worth fighting.
Yeah, that's what you start to realize. So, with all of that, I'm asking everybody: do you guys think that marriage is worth it, and what value does it bring to a man?
Worth it, but not needed. It is like I said, me and my wife, we've been married for 3 years, but together for 20.
Yeah.
The marriage after 3 years hasn't changed much. Nothing. Like I knew going in. I think Trayvon probably. I don't know if you remember, but you had gotten married like shortly before me, and I asked you, like, what changed? Like, were you expecting anything? Like, so I just wanted to know, because you've heard from from women before saying, "Oh, one should put the ring on it," blah 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 blah. I'm like, I've been with her for 17 years. I know certain things wasn't going to change. So I mean, I was checking with you, but I pretty much got the answer I was not expecting.
Will looked like he had something to say when I said it, so I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, well, nothing crazy. I mean, yeah, I would say it can be worth it, but I don't know, like kind of like we talked about in our previous conversation. Like, you were in the social media era now. We're in a different time, so it's like, how do you navigate that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think you can be worth it, but it's like, we're in a time now. It's almost like you got to find, not literally, but we're almost at that point. It's just like you got to find like a unicorn in order for everything to work, to have a quote unquote successful marriage in this day and time. So it seems, you know what I'm saying?
But could that be the problem? Looking for the unicorn? I don't have a unicorn. I mean, I have mine, and I love it to death. But how many unicorns have you actually met? That you actually say, "Hey, cool, she got the looks, the personalities,
right,
the et cetera." Like, I mean, I feel like because you hear it online all the time about, oh, the guy's got to have this, the guy's got to have that, da 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 da, and then you hear it. I'm like, look around you. Like, I look at the men in my family, love the women to death, but average, as in like, there's nobody standing out amongst the crowd, and they're all happy.
Yeah.
It's like, people are stretching themselves out because, like you said, with social media, you can see everybody. You see, like, oh, that's good, that's good, that's good. That all these other options, but it's like, can you get to that point? Is this someone you're gonna be like able to like actually talk to, or is it gonna be a long distance relationship? Like, there's so many things that's like, okay, I got this chick, she's blah 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 blah, but what else does that come with? Especially nowadays, and from what I've heard online, yeah. Sorry, but I don't want a unicorn.
Yeah,
I do not.
I feel you on that. I feel you. I just want to make it clear though. I'm not just talking about like I'm not trying to put too much emphasis on looks. You know what I mean? Like
No, I mean you meant
yeah.
perfect. Like,
personally, I don't think a girl like a girl's like 10, 9. I don't think that's a realistic thing to shoot for.
no.
You know what I mean? I think because more than likely in a bell curve, they're gonna fall somewhere in the average range. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's more than likely what's gonna end up.
I mean, you find one that checks off all these other boxes, I can swear she's gonna look different. She's gonna look like pick whoever you think is the hottest celebrity out there. Like, because she checks, you're happy, you feel good. Like, there's certain things. Like, my wife is Jamaican, I'm Guyanese. I don't know if you guys know, but she makes oxtail the way my mother makes it. That's a huge deal to me. That is a big deal because she cares, but she's Jamaican. So of course she grew up having it one way. But she's like, hey, my husband likes it this way. She learned how to make it and couldn't be happier with the way she makes it. And that's a little thing, but it's a big deal. So it's like, these are all things that's like, hey, takes her up more notches for me.
Absolutely.
Love that. Matt, you have something to say?
Yeah, well, I don't personally have experience being married because I've only dated. Aside from, I did live with a woman for a number of years, that long relationship, the lengthier one. And I'd say that was, in a sense, a taste of what it would have been like having been coupled with her through marriage. I'm going to say, though, I think in order to counter the chaos of the current dating scene and how it's transformed into what it is currently, I'm going to have kind of a write-off, but I think it still holds value, trusting your gut instinct with the partner you're with. And that's really the only true factor you can go by to determine if this person is worth binding yourself ritualistically through the ceremony of marriage, because that's a pattern I find with my friends, particularly the women they've been with have been the ones that have wanted marriage more so than anything, especially with them. I think women, it's just what I've found. I think women like knowing that they have secured something official with their partner. And I agree with that. I think it's a great way to bind together, to unite these, the souls together. The rings are symbolic of, in infinity together, the circular together. Yeah. And you in the ceremony, the words spoken, it's a true ritual. And it from what my friend was married a couple of years ago, and he was saying that it definitely transformed his psyche, the way he saw himself within the dynamic of his relationship. It took it up a notch. And of course, then he had a child, and that took it up even further. So I think if I was to have a child, I'd want to be married first and then have a child. Like, that kind of goes in that order. And there's a reason why we've retained this process especially in the West, in civilization. I think it's see, I don't know is it the right thing? I asked my father, is marriage worth it? And he gave me a very, very direct response, very crass, but very direct. He said, fuck yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, that says it all. So I think I'll go by his
Was
word.
your mom around?
No.
Here's the other room. Like, you better answer correctly.
I kid.
Yeah, no, you guys all raise very, very good points. I feel like for myself, it was more of it was the way I looked at it. A lot of people look at marriage as like the end. Marriage is the beginning. It's the start of everything. Like everything before that, you are auditioning for that role.
I
So
agree. Yeah.
like 15, 20 years. They've just been auditioning for 20 years. Because you want to know, like when you get to that point, the train's going to continue to move. It is what it is. It's just how you're navigating it in a different space. Now it's like an absolute, we got to figure this shit out. There's no running. There's none of that shit. Yes, you do have the option for divorce, but at the same time too, I think we're in a weird climate now, because I think there are more people who want to have weddings than to actually want to be married. And therein lies the difference. It's figuring out,
Can't argue with that one.
or do they want to get married?
Yeah,
Ours.
And
that's on point. That's on point.
But
I've been
we
asked
say
before.
we say women are pushing marriage more, but they're the ones who want the wedding more than the marriage, or is it like the wedding is more important than what comes after? Because it's like that's huge. Like especially if you're the one pushing it. Because it's like, say I was totally against marriage and you're pushing it, saying, "Oh, this is gonna happen." Da 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 da. Once it happens, like, oh, this shit better happen. Like these promises are like, okay, cool, great, we are here now. Because I mean, if you're with the person, like I said, 17 years, getting married wasn't just like really a big decision. Like, okay, yeah, it's about that. It's late. We were late, if anything. Like, I mean, I had already planned it to be, but it was more like, let me get other shit correct, like especially financially and whatnot. So it wasn't like, is she the right one? It was just like, okay, am I ready? So once we did it, it was more like, yeah, we finally took this next step. It was great, but it wasn't. I mean, the wedding was wonderful. Everything was great, and we are happy, just as happy. Like, it hasn't been no fall off. You know, you hear really when you get married, things start to fall off. I guess after 17 years, it was the fall off had happened, and we kind of balanced it out already. But do women? I don't know how to put this. Because if they want the wedding, or is it just some women? I'm not trying to, probably not saying this correctly, but they want the wedding, but just for the wedding, just to show, show everybody else, like, hey, look, I got the wedding ring. So, I mean, when you ask for something so big and then not uphold your side of it is kind of.
That's a part, right? I think it becomes a concept of the wedding has been so glorified and so underlooked. Now, if you look at like couples that have been together for a very long time, they'll tell you the wedding was one day. And after that day, it was always something.
Yeah.
There's a disagreement. There's always something you're going to deal with. Yeah. When you pull up statistics, it is more women leaving marriages than men. And I think the reason for that, and
I heard that.
It's more of a fact of we understand as men what work looks like, what hard ass work looks like. We've been doing it for hundreds and thousands of years. Our psyche is even told, like when we're pursuing a woman, like what you put yourself up, put yourself in a position where you can earn that woman. You work hard for her. You take her out on dates. It's chivalry. It's all of that stuff. You got to work your ass off for this shit. So once you get married, you're still working the same way you were working to begin with. You just assume it's a little bit easier now.
We knew nothing was going to change.
Right. But they're coming from a place where it's like, I was pursued and I was chased. Now I got the ring. Now I had the wedding. Now I took the photos. Oh, shit. Now I have to do stuff. Now I put in as much effort as this person. It's just they're not used to it. So when we get back to the concept of accessibility, I think a lot of women are just used to being chased and they enjoy being chased. Not to say this is all women. The women who get married are the ones who are like, you know what? I'm tired of running and I'm tired of this guy chasing me. So let's just walk where we're going together because this makes no sense anymore. And they're willing to put their roots in and actually dig in and like do the work to maintain it. Because it's like what they say with anything. Winning your first championship is hard. Maintaining and winning every season is hard. because constantly like having to reinvent yourself, constantly
100%. And you got to be ready and willing to do it.
Yeah, you have to be ready to put the work in.
Because certain things you fight is you're gonna lose. You might have win like, aha, I got my way, but what situation are you in?
Yeah.
You're in the doghouse sleeping on the couch, or she's mad at you, it's cold shoulder. Like, I don't mean, knowing me, I can let go of a fight real quick, like if it never happened. And when it comes time to go to bed, like I'm going to bed the same way, like if we never fought. So it's like, to not deal with it before getting to bed is a big issue for me.
Mm.
Because you'll be cold as hell and I'm going to still throw that leg over you and I'm still going to throw my arm around you and I'm going to get that elbow, like, get off of me. And I can't stand that shit. So it's like, maybe that's the marriage thing where you're like, yeah, I can't fuck with this. Nope. Can't mess with my sleep. We got to fix this now so we can go to bed and be happy, wake up tomorrow and it's a new day and everything is good. Maybe that's the part that people are missing out on.
It's the grind. No one sees the grind. And I don't think we talk to enough people who have been successfully married to understand the grind. I know I didn't. I just thought, you know what, you get married, everything's great. Yeah, it's going to be just like how your relationship was. I was sadly mistaken, because when you're dating, it's like Tim said, I can go disappear for a while. It's not a big deal. Matt, you lived with somebody, so you understand this concept too. You can't run.
There's no, yeah, you're there
in that energy and you're in that space until it's resolved. So it's just learning to navigate that and just kind of like, I'll say the first thing that I realized I had to lose once I got really entrenched into a relationship was I had to put my ego aside. I had to put it aside.
There's no place in a relationship.
Yeah, it's still true. It's so true.
When they bring up, like I was talking with my wife the other day, and I asked her, like, when you're with your friends, do you like ever brag about me, like talk about the good stuff or anything like that? She's like, fuck no, hell no. Do we do the same? Do we rather talk about the negative shit, like, or? Because I mean, we must have good stories. Are we doing the exact same thing? Like, it's the news. We rather hear the negative stuff so we can crack and laugh and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Isn't it the case, though, that when you're dating, you talk about the highlights, and when you're, I guess, when you're married, I'm presuming, it's all the issues with your friends. It's not about the glory. It's about the issues and things.
But it's like a personal thing. Like, would it be wrong for me to be like, oh, in the bedroom, blah, 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 blah. Not in a negative way, but like, yo, my wife, great, blah.
Right,
like,
right.
Is that bad?
It depends who you're telling it to, I guess. Like, if you have a really close friend and you feel like you need to express it, I guess that's the person to do it with. But
see, that's the point. Like, you got to feel the need to express it. Like, it's a weird thing, I'm guessing.
It is. I agree. Yeah, that's something that those are some private things you don't really have to.
Like, I don't mean necessarily just the bedroom, but like, she was pretty much saying like, oh, I know some women like would hear that good thing and start creeping and approaching and like trying to fuck with what you got.
Right.
But do we feel the same way? I've never felt like, I mean, I used to work with Trayvon and we used to talk for the whole shift and shit. I never felt that way. Like, I've never felt that, but I don't know. Like, is it just because me and him were tight and we were working together, or was it? Because it doesn't seem like anybody really wants to share that good stuff, unless it's like kind of wild or.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's like, yeah.
The company. I think if you're in like a relationship and everyone around you isn't, you know what I mean? You'll be less likely to be open about it because like, you're like, well, I don't know if they can relate to it the same way. Me and you, we were both long relationships and we were getting married around the same time. So
True.
It was so much easier. It was the same with that other guy, Nick, that we used to work with. He was
yes.
As us. So depends on your party.
Yeah. All right. What's his name? Remember, was it Jamal? Jermaine? Not Jamal.
Yeah, Jamal.
Jamal, right? Yeah. Like, I've told him, like, yo, certain stories I will never tell you.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, why? I'm like, you're a single guy, buddy. You talk too much.
Yeah.
Like, he would come and be like, yo, last night I was blah 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 blah, and start asking like personal stuff about me. I'm like, why are you even asking me this? So I guess what Terrell said was like it's correct. Like certain people, like, nah, you're not to bring anybody down, but it's like at a certain level of like, hey, I have a lot to fucking lose. Like we couldn't go and chill together after I've told you all my stories and be like, all right, I know you're gonna shut up. Like Jamal, I know his ass will be like, all right, let's see what's going on and bring some old story up. Trayvon, that's not an issue. Like whatever. I feel like all guys should know this, but is that what it is? Like we got to have the certain married men group or in a long-term relationship group kind of thing before we can like open up?
No, I think it's a maturity thing. Remember, Jamal was like really young and he was trying to smash everything around him. So it was different. We were already past that phase, right?
Yeah.
So for him, it's just like he can't comprehend our type of communication because we're just on a more mature playing field. But like
that's true.
A lot older, we're all a lot more mature. So it'd be more common with this than anything else. But I do find that weird. Like, I think back and I kind of want to ask a lot more women, like, do you talk positively around your guy, around your friends? Because I feel like when they start dating, they do.
Yeah. Because they want to like, oh, I got this great guy, but
it's
like
like
at some point it's like, okay, no, he's too good. Because even online, you see people like they won't post a picture of the guy. You'll see an arm. Yeah. You'll never see the face for like years. like is that a badge of honor? Like, aha, y'all ain't even seen me yet. I must be doing something good. Is that we got to see it?
Yeah, no, that's weird. That's interesting. I never really thought about that concept till now. All right, so
this is the start right here.
in a relationship, do you guys think that there are specific roles between men and women?
100%. To say a man is not a protector role, but you should be alone then, because no, for real though, because you are with your significant other and something pops up. What are you doing? Do you even think about it? Mm-hmm. Your thought is like, well, maybe how can we get away from this? But it has to be we. And if something's about to happen, and y'all not taking a punch, like and I'm talking like she didn't gas no one up, she didn't talk shit, blah blah. This is some wild dude just acting out. You're not gonna jump in and take this punch? No, yeah.
I'll take the hit. I don't mind.
Right, but I'm saying that is a definite role. We cannot.
I'll take the hit.
And a lot of guys you've seen online right now are dropping the ball.
It's funny. I always watch those prank videos where like comes out of the corner in a clown suit, and you could tell which couples are gonna stay together and which ones aren't. The ones that guy took off.
This can't happen.
Was on the
go
floor.
Back home together.
And
what do you do?
What is the conversation gonna be like when
you can't put no bass in your voice ever?
It's done.
Ever. The respect, they're like, oh shit, nah, this guy? No, he don't have my back. You can't have that. I mean, there's a lot more, but I feel like that's one of the basic ones. I see some people be like, nah, I don't know, you crazy? I'm not talking your girl acting out. Because I mean, even still, you're not putting your hands on my wife, but there's certain situations where it's like, sure, cool, get it, she's drunk, let me move her away, but hey, we're not crossing this line here.
Yeah, but see, that's where the protector role comes in. It's not all ready to fight. If I see you doing something that's going to put you in a bad situation, we're immediately cutting that out from the beginning.
Oh yeah.
If you hang out with certain people and every time you hang out with them you come back in a state, we're going to be like, hey, listen, maybe you should not be hanging around them so much, or maybe you got to start monitoring what you're doing, because I can't be there all the time. Yeah. So I need to know that you're going to be able to take care of yourself in those spaces where I can't be there. I'm very big on, like, if you're in a relationship, you have your freedom as well. I ain't tying nobody to the bed. It is what it is. But you have to be able to navigate yourself a certain way. The same way when I'm out doing my thing, I can navigate myself.
100%.
And I think that's the hardest thing with relationships, because you now have to trust that the person will be able to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, situation where they didn't do that before, there's a lot that you have to do in order to get that spot. I feel a lot, and I don't give a shit. I'll speak candidly on it. A lot of them think they can handle themselves better than they can actually handle themselves.
And I believe if you're a situation like that where, I mean, she could get hurt. Talking sternly, like, hey man, come on, not, you know, so you word it nicely. I'm like, yo, you're putting your life on the fucking line here.
Yeah, anything can happen.
Like, I want to protect you, but it's like, I don't want to fight this dude. Like, I really don't.
You might.
Like, I got you if I have to, but I don't want to have to. Because I'm not a fighter. I don't have no belts in nothing. This is just all right. Swing for the fence.
Don't kill me, man. All right, Will, Matt, what about you guys? What
Yeah, I'll listen to Will.
Yeah, I think I feel that roles are essential to a relationship. You know what I mean? I co-sign pretty much everything Tim said. Men have to be protectors, providers, or at least they should strive to be. And you know, the woman can have more of a nurturing role. You know, I guess, like I said earlier, being complementary to her man, and yeah, I think this, you know, like I said before, having two similar personalities, you know, there's more likely to be a clash. More likely, you know, things can go off the rails. So I think you need that yin and yang. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, you know, protector, provider, that goes without saying. It's part of our innate essence as men. It's just, you know, naturally who and what we are. And I'm going to add one more layer to that with natural leaders. And I speak from experience, because the woman I was in the lengthier relationship with, she would hint, she, like, you know, I mentioned earlier that she was competitive with me, and that was kind of, it was just strange.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that came from just her position in her work life. She never let it go. Like, she'd come home and still be in that work mode, and that wasn't good at all. But there were times when she would hint, at the future of us together, and she'd ask me these really sweet questions, like, are we, like, implying that we'd have a family, kids, and it was just so subtle the way she implied it. Though she'd be like, "Are you going to be one of those I guess, I don't know if she used the word father, but I think she did actually at one point. She said, are you going to be one of those fathers that takes us to church on Sunday, or like has us go to church on Sunday?" And I'm like, because we were talking about something having to do with religion and that, and I thought it was just really sweet, because she was like kind of hinting at, and the fact that I would be the one calling that shot, which is quite, you know, it's quite a position to be in, to determine something that guides the whole family in that direction. That was pretty awesome of her to implicitly, whether inadvertently or deliberately, hint at that particular role for me, and just like catering to what I would decide for us as a family unit. And there were other instances where she would ask questions like that, or just hint at things like that. And she had her ways of letting me know that the final word, it was between us, but she'd seek guidance from me. Leadership guidance, especially when I'd mentioned earlier about her having that little spat with her. I think it was even her boss. Her boss was being a real bitch, and she needed some support in dealing with that. And I have quite a knack for reading characters, even just from her descriptions of the interaction she'd have. And she looked to me for guidance on that. And it really enhanced her mood knowing that I was able to help. So just being that kind of, it sounds kind of cliche, but it's not, being that stoic figure where they need you to be that pillar of just rationale and logic. When they need it, they'll look to you, and we can provide that. That's just what we are. That's who how we're built. So protector, provider, leader, that's what we offer.
I like that. I just want to jump in there. I like how you brought that up, because in the beginning of my relationship, that's what I wanted to do, was like try to help and fix Probably like she'd come and talking with her boss or supervisor, blah blah. And I'm like, oh, why don't you try this? And that's not what she wanted. At that time, she wanted a friend. She wanted that girlfriend that would hate that bitch just the same way she hated that. And that was something I had to. It wasn't me.
Yeah, no, it's kind of unnatural. Like the women, they don't want you to fix it. They want you to listen to them, like vent the issue. But I found it so fascinating when she actually started asking for literal advice on what to do. And I'm like, all right, well, okay, now you're in my world, and I'm going to tell you what to do. For that. And it's going to work. And it did work. So that was pretty cool. That's what it can be at its best, I think. That means that she learned that I could be a source of true problem solving, like direct problem solving. And
you must have been doing something right.
Well, that's it. Yeah. And you know, the thing, like how that can be reciprocated with the woman is if you're open enough, she can cater to your emotional needs as a man, which is something that most guys never open up enough with their women to actually experience. But I've in later relationships beyond that one, I was more open, and that was something that the woman could offer me. So it's a two-way street in its own unique way. But yeah, it's you just don't have this innate knowledge. You kind of have to learn it. You have to learn about the opposite sex. You have to really be open to learning about them. And each woman's unique too, of course, as I mentioned earlier too. You have to learn your woman. You have to learn.
Amen.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Amen.
That's what it is. That's why I say when you get married, that's when the work starts, because it's that constant. Because they're always going to change. You're going to change every single day. There's going to be some shift or some transition, and you have to kind of like figure it out as you go. Now, the one thing I wanted to touch on was when you were talking about how your ex would come to you with like her problems and like ask for your direction and your leadership. One thing that I've learned is that once they get to that point, you know that you're doing something right.
100%.
Really about women, and we can look at our mothers, we can look at our sisters, we can look at our past relationships, friends, and everything. If they don't trust you, they're not going to listen to you.
Trust is the word. That's right.
Bring their problems to you. They're going to be like, no, I'm good. I don't need your help. So when they start coming to you, that means that you feel like they can actually open up that door of vulnerability with you. And the only way to actually do that is if you're doing it back with them. That's
for real. That's right.
Right? You've opened the door for me, so I feel comfortable now going through that door. If you have your own place and you tell a girl like, hey, listen, don't go into that room. For the first couple of visits, they're not going to go into that room, but eventually they're going to want to venture in there.
100%.
But if you tell her, all I have in there is work stuff, but you're free to go in there all you want. You've opened that access to her. She's not going to want to go. She's going to be like, well, I trust that there's work shit in there. I don't fucking want to go. All that shit just laying about.
I like that one.
I'd rather not. So it's good. It shows that was that development there. And I think like when you touched on it before and you were kind of hinting like that relationship was like the one that kind of like, I want to say that it wasn't. I said that was a relationship that was supposed to teach you that value.
Yeah.
Everybody come to is supposed to teach us somewhere. She was like a gateway to give you that opportunity to learn that aspect in life.
Certainly.
Now you can take that with you and like apply it to everything else. All right, so let's talk about chivalry and who killed it. Because one says it's dead. So who wants to lead the floor with this one?
I can't say it's dead, to be honest. I don't believe it. I think if you, and this is something actually that this is determining green flags in women, if they appreciate it, first of all, identify it. If you do it right, I mean, it's probably considered part of the courtship process. Like during that phase, if you can do it in a way that she identifies, you know that she's identifying it. I think you found a woman that's like perceptive to it. I always like those kinds of women that are, their minds are, they're intellectuals. They're perceiving your intent. They're picking up the details, and it also kind of plays into the masculine feminine role, being chivalrous with your just the way you interact with her. I don't think it should die. I think it kind of plays on like that classical romanticism type spirit of the courtship process. I'm going to say it's not dead because I personally won't let it die. I like doing those things. I love opening the door for the woman. So like on a date, like really doing all those fine details makes for a great experience. It's really special, especially when she appreciates it. It's just fun. It's like a nice add icing on the cake.
When you see that little like smile where they're like, "Oh, you do this?"
Yeah. Oh, and if you stand out, like, if you do it today, the girl's like, she's impressed, and it's like, me by default. That's just what I do.
This is why I'd say men killed it. We weren't getting the same kind of reaction that we were used to. Like, it doesn't even have to be someone you're interested in. You hold the door open, she's like, "Oh, thank you." That does a little something to you. It's not a big deal, but it's just like, oh, you appreciate that. It meant something to you. Once that started going away, it was just like, so what's the point?
Right.
Like I've seen there's stores online where you hold the door open and they're giving you attitude. It's just like, what the fuck am I doing this for?
Crazy, man.
No point in me doing this. So I think we killed it, but it was initiated. Like, it was okay. We don't want us to do it. Cool. But then it's a weird balance because there was a lot of women being like, whoa. I still want this. But when you don't know, you're still going to choose not to do it just so you're not offending anybody. But I mean, I still hold the door. I don't expect anything from it, but I mean,
right.
I'm still like, oh, thank you.
Doesn't matter to me.
It's really not that big of a deal, but I mean, there's times where it's just like, where I would hold the door for like 4 women going by, but it's just like, all right, 1, 2, all right, cool, we're good now. Keep going.
4 more coming? Nah. Hey. Oh shit! Don't kill me. I don't know. I like it. I'm still chivalrous. I'm like, man, I refuse to let it die. I don't think it should. I just, for me, it's more of a measuring stick now more than anything else. For me, it's like, I will be this. I will do all these things. But as soon as it's not appreciated anymore, then it's like what Tim says, you fall into that role where it's just like, well, the fuck's the point of doing it then? But there's certain things I will not fold on. As much as you say you don't want flowers on Valentine's Day, you're going to get them anyways. It is what it is. You'll always say that, but at the end of the day, it is what you want. You just don't want to tell me to do it. And that's what we have to understand. I think that's where everything's kind of getting confused now. Because I think, like Tim said to some degree, like, yeah, we stopped doing it because we weren't getting the reaction we wanted. Back then, they'd give you a rose and they'd accept your hand in marriage and all this shit. Whereas like now, a girl walks by when you hold the door for her and she's on her phone and she doesn't even realize somebody opened the door. Like, if this person wasn't there, you would have walked into the bitch and it would have been a pleasant experience for you. So I think it's now a matter of just kind of understanding how to manage it. Because I think if we do it too much as men and we're not getting those reactions back, we're just going to become very angry and jaded. Probably. For myself, to be honest, I get to that point where I'm just kind of like, well, fuck this. Like, why are we doing this then?
Yeah. And you're like, why should I feel bad about doing this?
Yeah.
You might not have wanted it, but it's still like, I didn't hurt you. There was no ill intent about this. It was just, I held the door for you. At the most, okay, just keep walking. Like, I'm not going to be mad you didn't say anything or acknowledge it or anything like that, but it's just, you hear online and people talking about it, and it's just like, oh, or they get to a point where it's expected so much that they don't have to do anything for it. It's just like, oh, that's what you're supposed to do. Well, yeah, okay, but thank you. That's
I was
supposed to do.
Simple as that. Just say things. Not even like, oh, ahead and look at me or whatever.
Acknowledge that it was done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna go too that because we could be here all day complaining about it.
Thanks for waiting for me, guys.
Oh, for sure.
All good.
We're gonna wrap it up quickly because I don't want to keep you guys too long. now that you guys have kind of like been into the dating world and all of that, Tim, you've been married forever.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, you've been in a relationship where you were living with a woman and had to navigate that space. Will's been doing his thing. He has his way of doing things, and he's constantly learning what works for him. If you can go back now and talk to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give him?
Oh boy, that's
That's a good one.
all
Yeah.
my advice
Really good
subtracting
questions, man.
my entire family. So it's a weird spot. Like none of it was like, all right, yeah, let's have a child. That's da 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 da. I was careless, but I have zero regrets at this point. So to look back, I mean, finish school, focus on that, focus on myself, so I could give my family a better life and kind of thing. Like, take your time. There is no rush. Not at all. Like, even if you waited until you're old, like, live your life and take your time. Take your time. Get to know people.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to just end it. I'm not talking about Mark, but don't be afraid to just end it. Take the L and move on. Take the L and move on. You see some relationships like, oh, they feel bad to leave or the guilt trip or whatever. I was like, hey, you're going to take the L. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to hate you. She's going to talk bad about you, but everybody knows how it plays out in the end. So you got to be able to take L's and just keep it moving.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I would say my advice to myself back then would be just focus on yourself. I mean, focus on your future, you know, the girls, all that shit, that'll come. Just focus on what you need to do as a man, you know, finish school. And eventually, you know, it took me till like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I finally got my mechanic license. But really, if I had focused on something, you know, like that years ago, instead of, you know, because I spent, oh man, in my 20s training those countless time that I can't get back, you know, relationships, pursuits that shouldn't have been, you know what I mean? It was what it was, but yeah, that would be the ultimate thing is invest in yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree with both Tim and Will on the points they bring up. Focusing on yourself. It's a brutal question because going back means it's kind of like I have no regrets because this is the way it's been. It's just this is how it's been for me. My unique experience, learning it's constantly learning. I'd say if I was to give myself advice, I'd say be more patient with the women you're with. Be more open to their emotional needs. And for myself, I'd say just absolutely focus on becoming the best version of myself I can be, because it's only going to raise the caliber of woman I'm gonna meet. And I'm the best place I can be in is going to bring me to the best woman I can find. And that's still something I'm applying that at the moment right now. Like there's no point of chasing after a woman at this point because I'm still trying to get to a higher place that I'd like to be in. And then I know it will come. So I'm not even thinking about that. Okay. It's just I've learned the rules of the universe, and I can be patient. I can wait. So yeah, it's a brutal question though. That's a wicked one.
Tough one. Dre picked the perfect question to end this thing.
Right.
Yeah. That's why I say for the end, because it's one of those things where like you have to like sit back and now think like, is there anything I would do different? And then you come up with something, then you're admitting to a degree like, oh well, you know, this didn't go well, and then you have some sort of regret. I'll say personally, I don't regret the way anything turned out in life because everything you go through does form who you are.
Exactly. Yeah.
The only thing I would say that if I were to go back and talk to 20-year-old me who was hanging out with Will, doing a whole bunch of
yeah.
Figure out who you are and make the best version possible of you. Mm-hmm. And the reason you do that is because whether you're alone or you're with somebody, that can't be taken away from you.
Correct.
So we all agree on that point, I guess.
Yep.
Focus on ourselves. We gotta be a little bit more selfish.
You have to be. We have to be. the better you are,
for all the right reasons, like doing it to build yourself up. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be. Like
Facts.
Tim, looking at it, you have kids. Being the best version of you provides the best dad for your son.
I agree.
Husband for your wife. And at the same time, you build the best version of you. I think a lot of us put that on the back burner because we've been told you have to get to this point in time. You have to do this by this point in life. You have to focus on this. You have to focus on that. I used to hear all the time, like, oh, you have to find a wife. And I'm just kind of like, I'm good right now. Like, I'm 20, 21 years old. I'm not even thinking about that.
Right.
But you get all those pressures from the outside. I do also think, though, that if I didn't do it, I don't know if I would have gotten to this point. I think
I agree.
With
my 100%.
It's just a matter of, it's hindsight now that you can look back and, say I would have done this and this and that, but I don't know how you would have been then.
Like a lot of these situations cause us to focus. It was like you said, you guys are in your 21s, just living your life wild and whatnot. Some shit happened and you're like, oh fuck, okay. I gotta do some stuff differently. So maybe we never got to the point where we're at now if we didn't deal with the shit we've dealt with before.
The one thing that I find interesting is that we've all had different experiences in life, and we're all in different parts of life. We're around the same age, but all in different parts of life. And we all more or less agree on the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing.
True.
It just shows how similar we are, man.
There's a universality to the experience of being men too. And that's why we agree on all these points. Mm-hmm. Because no matter where the direction of life takes us, we're gonna find common ground with dealing with navigating reality as it is, as we know it to be. So this is why these conversations are vital as well, because any man can relate to what we're saying. That's why it's
100%. Yeah,
great what you're bringing up in these conversations. These questions are like on point.
Yeah, very happy to have you guys out. Tim, I'm thankful that you were able to make it out.
I'm glad I made it, man. It's been fun.
You ran like hell to get there. And
good to have you back.
It's been fun, guys.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I hope you guys have an amazing night. We will do this again.
Look forward to it.
Talk about, but we will link up again. With that, guys, protect your heart.